Message. Cold and direct. Leaving no room for interpretation, Anna's hands moved steadily over the fabric, expertly folding a scarf for the next customer. The boutique was quiet today. Only the soft hum of her sewing machine and the occasional jingle of the doorbell as customers came and went. It was the perfect balance of stillness and purpose. The kind of atmosphere that always soothed Anna when the day felt endless and the tasks never seemed to stop. Then, her phone buzzed on the counter. Anna paused for just a moment, glancing at the screen without rushing. She already knew what the message would be. Jake's name flashed on the screen. It wasn't a casual check-in or a quick update about his day. This time, it was a... She took a steadying breath and opened the text. The words were brief but cut straight to the heart. I'm leaving you. I'm moving to Miami with Sophie. I've emptied the joint account. I'm sorry, but this is how it is. The sting hit her, a sharp, painful blow, but Anna's hands remained steady, unfazed. She didn't react, didn't flinch. Her fingers continued their work, wrapping the scarf with precision. Her gaze didn't falter, but there was a subtle tightness around her eyes, a barely noticeable tension. Sophie. The name felt like a slap. But Anna wouldn't let herself dwell on it. She wouldn't give it the satisfaction. The message didn't matter. Jake's actions didn't matter. What mattered was that Anna wouldn't let herself break down over it. She wouldn't allow this moment to define her. Not here, not now. The doorbell jingled again, pulling Anna out of her thoughts. Mrs. Peterson, a regular, walked in with her usual excitement, eager to see the new collection. Anna greeted her with a warm smile. As if nothing had changed. As if the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. Hello, Mrs. Peterson. Are you looking for anything special today? She asked. Her voice steady and composed. Mrs. Peterson smiled back, choosing a scarf with delight. Anna wrapped it carefully, as always, giving it her full attention. She handed the package over with the same graciousness she always did. The shop was the same. The service was the same. There was no sign of the storm raging inside her. Once Mrs. Peterson left, the door closing softly behind her, Anna turned her attention back to the phone. Another message from Jake. Don't even think about trying to get me back. It's done. I'm with Sophie now. Anna picked up the phone. But she didn't rush to respond. Instead, she placed it gently back on the counter and locked the shop for the evening. A moment of stillness. A brief pause, as the weight of what had just happened settled in. No tears, no anger, no desperation, just calm, just clarity. She picked up the phone again, typing a simple reply, "Good luck." She placed the phone back down and took a deep breath. There was no fury, no heartbreak. It was just the next step. A step she had known was coming for months. The signs had been there all along, the late nights, the sudden changes in behavior. The new obsession with the gym. The new clothes. Sophie, the receptionist. She had known. She had seen it all and prepared for it. Anna wasn't shocked. She wasn't even angry. What bothered her wasn't the affair. It was Jake's complete and utter misjudgment of her. He thought she would crumble. He thought she would beg him to stay. But Anna wasn't that woman. She wasn't the woman who would break. She had her shop. She had built it from scratch. She had worked tirelessly for it. And she wasn't going to lose it, not because of Jake. Not because of Sophie. She picked up her phone again and dialed the number she had memorized. Lydia, it's time, she said calmly, without hesitation. Make the move. She hung up, not waiting for a reply. Lydia had been her lawyer for months. And everything was already set in motion. Anna had anticipated this moment. She had prepared for it. Jake thought he had won. He thought he had gotten away with it. But Anna knew better. He wasn't the one in control here. She was. She had always been. The signs had been there for months. Though Anna hadn't wanted to admit it at first. It was easy to ignore the subtle shifts. Jake's increasing absences. The late nights at work. The mysterious phone calls. The strange password changes. It all seemed so trivial in the beginning. Easy to dismiss as nothing more than the typical stresses of a busy life. But slowly, the small things started to add up. And the weight of the truth pressed on her chest, suffocating her with the realization that the man she had trusted for over a decade might not be the person she thought he was. It wasn't just the late nights anymore. It was the way he started dressing, new clothes, tighter shirts, and a sudden obsession with his appearance. Anna noticed the way he would spend more time at the gym, pushing himself beyond what seemed healthy, buying expensive workout gear like someone trying to reclaim a lost youth. It was almost as if he was trying to reinvent himself, to become someone she didn't recognize. And then there were the little things, the shifts in his behavior that were impossible to ignore. The secrecy around his phone, the new passcodes, the random texts he'd dismiss in a hurry when she'd walk into the room. His once caring demeanor had slowly morphed into something colder, more distant, but what really tipped Anna off was the night she found the receipt. It was for dinner for two at an expensive restaurant, and it had been charged to their credit card on a night when Jake had insisted he was working late. That was the moment, that one small, careless slip. Anna's gut had tightened with the realization that this wasn't just a phase. This wasn't some passing distraction. This was betrayal. But instead of spiraling into anger or despair, Anna did what she always did. She took action. She opened a new bank account, quietly shifting her personal savings to the new account before Jake could notice. A week later, when he casually mentioned wanting to combine their accounts to make things simpler, Anna agreed with a smile, moving his funds to the joint account without hesitation. She left just enough in their joint account, exactly 2 months' worth of deposits, to avoid suspicion. The rest was safely tucked away in her own account, where Jake couldn't touch it. She wasn't blind to his arrogance, either. The way he bragged about his career, the way he dismissed her boutique as a hobby, while his own job at the middle management level was no more than a convenient placeholder. Anna had worked hard to build her business, to grow it into something meaningful, something that was hers, and his comments only fueled her resolve to protect it. She had done everything she could to keep her personal finances and her business separate. Jake's lack of respect for her achievements, his insensitivity to her passion, only made her more determined to keep him out of the financial aspects of her life. In the weeks that followed, Anna watched as Jake's behavior became increasingly erratic, as if he was trying to justify his actions to himself. He made careless decisions, and every step he took only gave her more ammunition. His texts became more frequent, more condescending. "I know this must be hard for you," he said, as if his departure was some kind of mercy. "You're not getting any younger. After all, at least you have your little shop to keep you busy." Her little shop. Anna couldn't help but laugh at his ignorance. Her shop wasn't little. It wasn't a hobby. It was everything to her. It was her passion, her creation. It had provided for her when Jake's job failed to do so. It had given her independence. And that was something he could never take away. But what truly sent Anna's resolve into overdrive was the final text Jake had sent before he'd left. "By the way, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift." Lol. The arrogance, the casual cruelty, it was almost too much to bear. But instead of feeling angry, Anna felt something else, a cold clarity. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she had been preparing for. Before I share what happened next, the moment that left an entire room of journalists in stunned silence, I want to connect with you. My amazing viewers, where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started. Anna dialed her lawyer, the one she had consulted months ago when she'd first found the hotel charges on their credit card. The conversation was short but deliberate. "It's time," Anna said simply. Her lawyer's reply was swift. "The papers are ready. I'll file them tomorrow." Anna hung up the phone with a small sense of satisfaction. Jake had made his move. Now, it was time for her to make hers. Anna could feel the storm brewing on the horizon. But she wasn't about to let it sweep her away. While Jake basked in the thrill of his new relationship, sending her taunting messages about how hard things must be for her, Anna stayed focused. She refused to let his departure rattle her, refused to show him that the emotional devastation he thought she'd feel would ever come. Instead, she got to work. She ran her boutique like she always had, with purpose, with care, and with an eye on the bigger picture. There was no time for self-pity or anger. She wasn't going to be a victim in this story. She wasn't going to let him believe for a second that his betrayal could break her. As the days passed, Jake continued sending text after text. Some were filled with condescension. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your own age. I'm sure your little business will keep you busy. Others were more subtle, designed to chip away at her confidence. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger. After all, each one made Anna's blood boil. But she refused to let it show. She had already moved beyond the need to prove anything to him. Every word, every message, was simply fuel for her resolve. Instead of reacting, Anna used his words to further strengthen her plan. She smiled as she thought about how Jake believed his betrayal had shattered her. If only he knew how wrong he was. The truth was, Anna had been preparing for this moment for months. She had quietly made sure that when the storm hit, she wouldn't be left standing in the rubble. By the time Jake's next message came in, Anna had already taken the necessary steps. She had contacted her lawyer, had every document she needed lined up. Her assets were protected, her business secured. She wasn't about to let this man, who had no respect for her or her hard work, take anything from her. She had built her boutique from the ground up, and she wasn't about to let him walk away with even a fraction of it. When Jake's message arrived, taunting her once again about how easy it would be for him to start over, Anna only nodded to herself. He truly believed that his actions were a grand escape, a chance to start fresh, while she was left behind to wallow in regret. What he failed to realize was that she had already started over 2 years ago. When she first set foot into the world of business, carving out her own path, free from the confines of anyone's expectations, she had already made her move. Jake didn't know it yet, but he was playing into her hands. He had emptied their joint account, and he thought that was a victory. He thought he had the upper hand. What he didn't realize was that Anna had long since anticipated this. Had anticipated every one of his moves. The moment he made his grand gesture. The moment he thought he had escaped unscathed. She had already taken the necessary steps to ensure his actions would not hurt her. Her boutique was thriving, her business growing stronger with every passing day. Anna had taken care of everything. And now, all she had to do was wait. The calm before the storm was her moment of clarity. Her time to shine. She wasn't in a rush to make her next move. She would do it with the precision and grace that had always defined her. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, she didn't even need to look. She knew what it would say. I've made my decision, Anna. This is over. Good. Let it be over. Before she replied, Anna took a deep breath, straightened her back, and gave her boutique one final glance for the evening. The storm was coming, but she was ready for it. This was her moment, her time to rise above everything that Jake had tried to tear down. She typed her reply. Goodbye, Jake. Anna set her phone down, grabbed her coat, and turned off the lights in her boutique. Outside, the world seemed calm, as if nothing had changed. But for Anna, everything had changed. She wasn't the woman who would cry over a betrayal, the woman who would beg for a second chance. She was the woman who had learned from her mistakes, who had built something stronger than she could have ever imagined. The storm was coming, yes, but Anna wasn't afraid of it, because when the dust settled, she would be standing tall, stronger than ever before. The day of the hearing arrived, and Anna felt an unexpected calmness settle over her. She had prepared for this moment for months, and now it was time to see everything fall into place. As she walked into the courtroom, she could feel Jake's presence even before she saw him. His arrogance palpable in the way he carried himself. He sat with his new lawyer, looking slightly out of place in his designer suit, an attempt to present himself as someone who had everything under control. But Anna knew better. She had seen the cracks, the lies, and now it was time to expose them. Jake looked up as she entered, his eyes narrowing just for a second before he forced a smile. You really thought you could get away with this? He asked, his voice laced with mockery. You know, the court will see right through you. You'll be the one left with nothing. Anna didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had already made her case. And it was a good one. She turned her attention to the judge, who had already begun reviewing the files. The room was quiet, save for the rustling of papers and the soft tapping of the judge's pen on the desk. Anna's lawyer, Lydia, sat next to her, looking calm and confident. Anna's heart was steady, her focus sharp. The judge cleared his throat, glancing over the documents in front of him. "Let's begin," he said, his voice firm but neutral. Jake's lawyer stood first, attempting to make his case with the same arrogance Jake had shown when he walked into the room. "Your Honor, my client admits he may have made some mistakes, but he believes the distribution of assets is unfair. He has been the primary breadwinner in this marriage. He deserves a fair share of the business and assets." The judge didn't even flinch. "Is that so?" he asked, his eyes now shifting to Anna's lawyer. Lydia stood, poised and composed, ready to make her argument. "Your Honor," Lydia began, "my client has worked tirelessly to build her business. A business that has been separate from the shared assets of the marriage. We have documentation proving that Anna has kept all financial matters related to her boutique separate from the joint accounts. She has been a successful business owner long before the marriage, and the contributions she made to her business during the marriage are hers alone." Jake's lawyer attempted to counter, but his voice lacked the conviction it had held just moments before. "But he has supported her emotionally. He helped with the business in ways that can't be measured in numbers. He deserves his share." Lydia's eyes narrowed slightly, and she didn't hesitate. "Emotional support doesn't entitle someone to claim half of a business they never built. My client maintained careful records of all the investments made in her business. Every penny is accounted for. The business was her vision, her work." Jake contributed nothing more than criticism, while undermining her at every turn. Anna's heart swelled with pride as she listened to Lydia's words. Every ounce of preparation, every decision she had made, was leading to this moment. She had protected herself, her business, and her future. She had built this life on her terms. And no one, least of all Jake, was going to take it away from her. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat as Lydia continued to lay out the evidence. She presented receipts, bank statements, and even Jake's own text messages, where he bragged about emptying their joint account and using their credit card to fund his getaway. The evidence was damning, and there was nowhere for Jake to hide. The judge listened carefully, his expression never wavering as Lydia presented the facts. Finally, he turned to Jake. "Mr. Harrison," he said, his tone sharp, "you admit to taking funds from the joint account and using the shared credit card to book flights and hotel rooms for your affair. Correct?" Jake's lawyer cleared his throat, but Jake himself remained silent, the weight of the truth sinking in. "Yes," he muttered, unwilling to look anyone in the eye. The judge didn't need to say much more. He turned his gaze to Anna and gave a slight nod, acknowledging her careful documentation and her unwavering strength throughout the proceedings. "I find sufficient evidence of financial misconduct," he declared. "All shared assets will be frozen pending the dissolution of this marriage. Mr. Harrison is ordered to return the funds he took within 24 hours. Additionally, I am granting Anna Harrison sole ownership of her business, as it is clearly separate from the marital assets." Anna's heart raced, but there was no joy in her expression, no triumph. She had expected this. She had worked for this. This was the justice she deserved, the recognition of her hard work and her determination. Jake's face contorted in disbelief, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to find the words to argue. But there was nothing he could say. The damage had been done, and now he would have to face the consequences of his actions. "Your Honor," Jake began, but the judge interrupted him with a stern look. "No further arguments. Mr. Harrison, you've had your chance," the judge said, his voice final. As the court session came to a close, Anna stood tall, her posture confident, her resolve unshaken. She didn't look at Jake. She didn't need to. She had already won. This was her moment, and the world would soon see her for who she truly was, not just a woman scorned, but a woman who had fought for everything she had earned. Anna gathered her things, her heart steady, and followed Lydia out of the courtroom. The moment they stepped into the hallway, Lydia gave her a quick smile. "You did it," she said. "You kept your integrity, and you've secured your future. I'm proud of you." Anna nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over everything. For the first time in a long time, Anna felt the weight of the past few months lift from her shoulders. She had won more than just a legal battle. She had reclaimed her life, her business, and her independence. And Jake? He had no idea just how much he had underestimated her. The weeks that followed the hearing were a blur of motion for Anna. The relief of the courtroom victory slowly faded into the steady rhythm of rebuilding her life and business. She had expected the shift, expected the quiet sense of liberation that would come once the legal battle ended, but what surprised her was how quickly her strength turned into momentum. Her boutique, which had always been her sanctuary, began to thrive in ways she hadn't anticipated. Business was booming, customers were returning in droves, and the whispers of her story spread like wildfire. The gossip, surprisingly, worked in her favor. People in the local community had watched Anna's marriage unravel. Some from a distance, some up close. They had witnessed the changes in her, seen the quiet resolve in her eyes, and now they were eager to support her. Her boutique became a symbol of resilience, of strength in the face of betrayal. And Anna was no longer just a shop owner, she was an icon of empowerment. She poured herself into the work, adding new lines, expanding her offerings, and redesigning the store with a fresh energy. Every decision was made with care, every piece of inventory chosen with a sharp eye for detail. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And every day she could feel the seeds she had planted years ago begin to blossom in ways she never imagined. One evening, after another record-breaking day of sales, Anna stood in front of the large window of her boutique, gazing out at the city. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the streets. The shop was quiet now, the last customers having left for the night. It was just her and the soft hum of the lights above. She allowed herself a moment of reflection, of quiet satisfaction. She had built this. She had done it alone, without anyone's help, and she wasn't finished yet. The next step was clear. It was time to expand. Anna had always dreamed of having multiple locations, of taking her brand beyond the confines of this small neighborhood shop. And now, with the business flourishing, that dream was closer than ever. She hired new employees, dedicated, driven, passionate people who shared her vision. Together, they worked long hours, rearranging, designing, and strategizing. The second location opened within months, followed by a third. Each store was unique, carefully crafted to match the community it served. Yet all of them carried the same soul, the same heart that Anna had poured into the first one. But it wasn't just about the business anymore. As her empire grew, so did Anna's reputation. She became a sought-after speaker, invited to events, asked to share her story with others who were struggling to find their own footing. Her experiences, the hardships, the betrayals, the quiet strength, became lessons she shared with other women. She spoke not just about business, but about resilience, about the power of standing up for oneself, about knowing your worth. Her story, once a painful memory, had transformed into a message of hope and empowerment for others. And the more she shared, the more she realized just how far she had come. The life she had now, the woman she had become, it was everything she had ever wanted. And more. Jake had underestimated her. He had thought that his departure would leave her broken, that his betrayal would ruin her. What he didn't realize was that in his attempt to tear her down, he had only given her the fuel she needed to rise higher. Anna's business didn't just grow, it exploded. Word spread beyond the neighborhood. And soon, she had national recognition. Her boutique was featured in magazines. Her story became a case study for women entrepreneurs. And she began mentoring young business owners who sought her advice on how to protect their assets and build lasting success. She had become a force in the industry, respected not only for her business acumen but for her strength and resilience. As the months passed, Anna's personal life flourished as well. She traveled for business, attended events, and met new people, some who admired her for her accomplishments, others who admired her for the way she carried herself with grace and humility. She had come to terms with the past, no longer burdened by the mistakes she had made or the pain she had endured. Every setback had only been a stepping stone towards something greater. And through it all, she never forgot where she came from, never forgot the little boutique that had started it all. She remained hands-on, still involved in every decision, every detail. But now, it wasn't just about keeping her head above water. It was about continuing to push forward, continuing to grow, to show the world that she was more than her past. She was the future. Every time she passed the original store, Anna smiled to herself. It was no longer a symbol of what she had lost, but of everything she had gained. The hustle of life outside the store seemed to fade as she stood there, watching customers come and go, hearing the laughter of her employees, and feeling the warmth of the space she had created. She wasn't the woman who had been abandoned. She was the woman who had built something beautiful from the ground up, and that was her victory. The business continued to expand, eventually reaching 5 locations. The boutique chain became a well-known brand, and Anna's name was synonymous with success. She had not only survived, she had thrived. Jake, meanwhile, had fallen into obscurity. His attempts to reconcile with her had long since faded, and he was now stuck in the life he had chosen, facing the consequences of his actions. Anna had built more than a business. She had built a legacy. And in the end, that was the true triumph. It had been 2 years since the divorce. 2 years since Anna had taken back control of her life. And now, as she stood in the grand opening of her 5th boutique location, she couldn't help but smile. The journey had been nothing short of transformative. And as she surveyed the bustling store, filled with eager customers, she realized just how far she had come. The boutique was no longer just a store. It was a statement, a testament to everything she had endured and triumphed over. The energy in the space was vibrant, as people marveled at the carefully curated displays, the sleek designs, and the attention to detail that had become synonymous with Anna's brand. But what really struck her was the sense of peace that washed over her. She had created something that was entirely hers. And in doing so, she had found herself again. It hadn't always been easy. There had been moments of doubt. Moments when she wondered if she could keep going, if the weight of it all would eventually break her. But she had pushed through. She had learned to rely on her instincts, to trust her decisions, and, most importantly, to believe in her own worth. The woman standing in this store today wasn't the same woman who had walked out of that courtroom 2 years ago. She was stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. She glanced around the room, taking in the faces of her employees, her loyal customers, and even a few familiar faces from her past. It was strange, almost surreal, to see how far everything had come. She caught the eye of Amanda, Jake's sister, who had been a rare source of support during the divorce proceedings. Amanda gave her a small smile, and Anna couldn't help but nod in return. There had been a time when she thought she would never get past the heartbreak. But here she was, standing tall and proud, with a thriving business and a life that was finally her own. The past 2 years had been a journey of healing, of reclaiming what was rightfully hers. And as she glanced at the framed photo on the wall, a picture of her boutique's grand opening, the significance of it hit her once again. She had come full circle. The very place that had been the foundation of her independence was now an empire. A symbol of what she had built and achieved. She had once wondered if she would ever be able to move on from the betrayal. If she would ever be able to forgive herself for staying in a marriage that had broken her spirit. But over time, she had come to realize that moving on wasn't about forgiveness. It was about freedom. It was about letting go of the past so she could fully embrace the future. Without the weight of regret holding her back, her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from her lawyer, Lydia, a simple update about the ongoing legal proceedings regarding the finalization of her business assets. Anna smiled, knowing that Lydia's updates had become more of a formality at this point. There was nothing more to worry about. She had secured her future, and the life she had worked so hard for was finally in her hands. As she looked around the store, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. There would be more locations, more milestones, more opportunities to share her story and inspire others. But most importantly, there would be peace. The kind of peace that came from knowing that she had created something lasting. Something that was hers and hers alone. And with every step she took, she knew she was building not just a business, but a legacy. Anna had learned the hard way that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. She had responded with strength, with determination, and with grace. And now, as she stood in the heart of her flourishing business, she realized that the past no longer had a hold on her. She had moved on, and she had done so on her terms. For the first time in a long time, Anna felt a true sense of closure. The chapter she had closed was no longer a source of pain, but one of triumph. It had shaped her, yes, but it no longer defined her. The woman she was today was someone who had chosen to rise above, to build something meaningful and lasting. And as the doors to her newest boutique opened for the evening, and the last of the customers drifted out, Anna stood alone in the quiet, watching the last light of the day slip through the windows. She wasn't looking back anymore. There was nothing to go back to. Her future was wide open, and she was ready for whatever came next.